Wetlands can soak up a lot of water. When water floods out of a river channel into a wetland, the wetland soil and plant roots act like a sponge. The wetland reduces the amount of water flowing down the river channel. The wetland holds the water for a while. Then the water slowly seeps back into the river channel. The total flow of water going down the river is not reduced by very much, but the wetlands and floodplains slow the flow rate of the water in the channel, and this reduces the effects of the water as it flows downriver. Wetlands and floodplains help to reduce erosion and lower the level of floods. The wetland plants slow the rate of flow in another way. Plants such as rushes and grasses provide barriers. The water must flow around and over the plants. This reduces the speed of water flowing down the main river channel. And this says wetland plants such as rushes and grasses act as a water barrier. You can see those examples there. This says a storm surge can produce huge waves that flood coastal areas. Rivers aren't the only source of flood hazard. Ocean water is subject to tides. Every day the tide comes in and then goes out. When the highest tides flow in, low coastal areas might flood a little bit with seawater. But when large tropical storms come near shore, the strong winds can blow an extra load of seawater up onto the land. This kind of flood wave is called a storm surge. A storm surge wave can be several meters high. The surge can push water into towns along coastal areas. It can destroy buildings and leave several meters of salty water on the land. Again, one of the best defenses against this kind of flood is a wetland. Wetlands exist along many parts of the coast, particularly at the mouths of rivers and creeks. Rushes and reeds, mangroves and cypress trees, and salt-tolerant grasses grow in the wetlands. These wetland plants form a natural barrier against the rushing surge water. Slowing the surge waters reduces the height of the surge. It reduces the force of its impact, and the wetlands limit how far the water flows inland. Whoops, went too far. Wetlands also trap silt and sand, creating offshore land. In some places, this process creates barrier islands. Barrier islands are strips of narrow land a short distance from shore. They provide a large buffer zone between the open ocean and coastal cities. The only problem is that people like to build their homes on these beautiful islands. These homes have no buffer against the full force of surges when tropical storms strike. Some climatologists think that tropical storms are getting more powerful. These storms may bring heavier than usual rainfall and produce more frequent floods. It would be wise for people living in flood zones to make plans to protect their wetlands. City planners, farmers, geologists, engineers, biologists, teachers, and students can work together to preserve wetlands and floodplains. The result would reduce the damaging effects of these floods. So here's some questions to think about. Number 1, have there been floods in your community? What caused them? And what was the effect of the floods? So think about that. Number 2, is there a floodplain in your community? How is it used? And number 3, is there a wetland in your community? How does that wetland help reduce the effects of floods?